Hi, and welcome back to the spring break edition of the Green Page Podcast, 2015. We're here to discuss articles that you can find at cmuptm.blogspot.com. And our first article
is from the Stan Winston School of Stop Motion Animation. Stan Wilson School, of Character Arts. Very small on here.
Yeah.
The article is called Stop Motion Animation Part 1, Puppet Creation. And it is about, basically it's a little intro video trying to get you to buy a course. But the intro video is kind of interesting. From the Chiodo brothers, legendary Chiodo brothers, they say, they do stop motion animation, and they're known for things like Team America, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and Elf.
Team America, hands down, favorite puppet movie ever.
I mean, it's very good.
Yeah. Oh, they did the stop motion Elf. That was cute.
It was cute.
That was really cute.
And actually, I looked at the preview. It's good. They're doing some really interesting things. Good. Let's see. Not my taste, but it's let's say it's technically proficient. Right. I think it's interesting. But essentially, the article is kind of strange because it's not an article so much as a promo trying to get you to buy a 6-hour course for $40 streaming or $55 for the DVD for I think just the first section out of 4.
Yeah.
But I will say, looking this and looking at we watched a very short clip. It's only a minute long, and then a little photo stream, but their work is pretty interesting.
This is sort of the University of Phoenix for stop motion animation, right? That's kind of what they're trying to do. We'll teach you how to do these things. Our professors aren't academics, they're working professionals. Yeah. All the same arguments that an online university like University of Phoenix
makes. It's an online vocational course, basically.
Right.
But I would say for someone like me who makes, I make models for scenery, for set models, and this actually interests me. I don't want to go to school for stop motion animation, but I'd be interested in knowing how that works to increase my set of skills.
Are you $40 interested?
To SCAD? Honestly, maybe. I was this kind of seems great, because I've thought about, maybe I should just go into stop motion animation and make less money than I already make.
You also thought that maybe you should just be a biologist.
I did. I think a lot of things. I thought maybe a chef.
This is what spring breaks does to you. It makes you question your life choices.
I used to roller skate really well. Maybe I could do that. But I think I kind of am the target audience for this, and other people either who are hobbyists or people who are poor.
It's the first thing like this that I've really come across.
Yeah.
An arts-based, pay-to-play kind of professional training program.
I've seen it for software. I've seen it for things like
Lydia, I guess that same type of thing. Although,
for software though, you can just go on YouTube. Anything you need to find about how to use software, just go to YouTube. I wouldn't pay for that. But this seems a little bit different because these guys are clearly the top of their game. Mm-hmm. The video is well produced. Yeah.
Yeah.
It made me think we should set something up like this for learning how to do podcasts. We could sell people a training video about how to do the best podcast they can possibly do.
We'll let you know how to set it up.
Which is
let you know about costumes.
Which is our goal every week.
Makeup.
Right. Hats.
Hat design. Millinery for podcasts.
But it's coming to an institution like we do, where we pay sort of a lump sum for sort of a whole range of training in different areas of what we do. Mm-hmm. Would you rather be able to pick and choose very specific courses for a very specific amount of money? Would you rather take a scene design class, a model making class with Dick Block, over the internet for $70 rather than pay whatever we pay? Let's not say it on the air, but to get sort of a general education, some of which, honestly, you might say isn't exactly what I came for.
Yeah, although I will say that I've been in some courses where I even so far, this is my second semester here, where I was resistant to enroll in courses and thought I don't care about this class, or it's just not my cup of tea, and I've gotten something out of it that I didn't expect.
Right.
So I think there's something to be said for letting someone else guide you. And then also in this, this seems like a really helpful course if you know these are the skills you want to get and that you can get them this way, but that you don't get any feedback about your work. You don't have the opportunity to ask
Yeah.
any questions. You
It's
just kind
true.
of, or you're flying blind. I mean, I don't.
The feedback thing is huge in this,
Yeah.
especially in this type of thing.
And also,
like-
like, being forced to have deadlines.
It's
Like,
it's good.
It's good. It's a
well,
good
you just
thing.
ignore them anyway, Kevin. I mean, what are you talking
That's
about?
besides the point. We're not. Don't make this about us, okay?
In your relationship right now.
I'm
It's
just,
not
I'm just
important.
playing around. Just playing around. Yeah.
Can we do this later?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
Should we
move
move
on.
on?
Yeah, that was a good discussion about that. But I completely agree. Like part of the whole reason for having sort of a umbrella type education style is because you don't know what you always want to know. Like you can't know the things that you don't know.
Right. I think I do. I'm like, I'm just not interested in this. And then you get into the course and you're like, oh, well,
Well,
I
yeah.
was wrong.
Exactly.
Like this course was valuable.
Which is, yeah, learning that you're wrong is probably the best thing that you can possibly learn. in an
Learn that
institution
all
like
the
this.
time.
I've learned that Andrew's wrong like 90% of the time
94%. Yes.
so far.
Shall we move on to let's do the fluff piece for the week? College candy.
College
Oh
candy.
yeah. Okay.
Let's do the
here
flush
we go.
piece. Yep. Vanessa David from College Candy, which is a website for college girls. It appears. I think that's fair to say. Since the rest of the
Girls who aren't
articles
me.
are about like
College cuties.
Yeah,
let's just
exactly.
say.
So
like
this
Kevin.
article describes 4 note-taking apps that you might want to use on your phone or your iPad for classes while you're in
5.
college.
5.
5? Is
Yeah.
it 5?
It does
5.
say 5.
The
Best
title
apps.
of the app is Note-Taking Apps.
Okay,
Top
but the
5
fourth
Best
one
Apps.
is Dragon. What's it called? The fourth one
Ballsy.
is Dragon Dictation.
Oh.
And Dragon Dictation, I know because I've used it, is not a note-taking app. It's a dictation app, which would be
Oh.
really annoying if you were doing that in class.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is a note-taking app that no one would
You're
allow.
taking verbal notes.
Yeah.
That's
So
not
and
helpful.
I've actually used that while driving from New York to Pittsburgh to write a paper for
Oh.
colloquium class.
Oh.
That's cool.
That's smart.
And it was useful to get ideas on paper, but
So a useful app, but not necessarily a note-taking app.
definitely not.
That
no.
would be really irritating.
Yeah, well, the other ones are Penultimate, My Script Smart Note, which is
A dumb
Not
name.
a
Very bad
succinct
name.
title.
Penultimate is very good.
Inkflow,
Inkflow.
Nice.
pretty tight name.
I'll take it.
Dragon Dictation,
Like I said,
I think kind of less good. That implies that it's very slow.
yeah.
Dragon.
it takes.
Dragon.
So I will say
Dragon
this,
like an animal, like that thing that doesn't exist.
I don't know, the homophone thing. Is
since I've used it, I will say that it's really great for getting ideas down, but you kind of have to talk in phrases and like just the like copy it, and it takes a lot of editing afterwards to string it together. So Dragon Dictation not necessarily the best.
I mean,
And
that's
then-
kind of true on your text.
And then the last one is Simple Note.
That's okay.
Have you used it?
My dad would use it.
Yeah.
The
No, I mean
description,
name.
the
I don't
description
remember
is,
used it.
is easy to use. This is literally its title.
Figuratively.
Simple. I think she meant
Maybe
figuratively.
she's not smart.
Figuratively is simple.
So there's 5 apps. Please go check them out, I guess. Personally, I take notes on pen and paper. I have never found taking digital notes to be useful in a class situation.
Yeah.
Mostly because I usually want to be able to sketch, and I don't usually just want to write words.
This is sort of unrelated, but I saw this thing the other day. It was named like the best in like digital like invention app of 2014. It was this whiteboard that you draw on, and like it has it has an app, so like everyone else in the room can download the app, and then what you draw on this whiteboard in the middle of the room shows up on your phone.
Yep.
Oh.
Which it's basically like Google Docs plus a whiteboard.
Right. The whiteboard sort of records what
Yeah.
the meeting, what's happening in the meeting.
It
Yeah,
looks
it's
kinda
cool.
I mean, the idea of being able to take notes on something that could store everything instead of having to carry around like a million notebooks, I think is cool. I do know from experience that like so far the technology is only sort of there. Like you
Yeah.
write it and then you have to check to make sure it's actually getting it. And it's
Right.
like if I'm taking notes, I just need to take notes. Like
I mean, I
just
think
need
while,
you to get it.
Yeah, while this article is it's just a list of some apps, I think
Yeah.
something it points to in sort of like the broader trend in education is, just how digital technology is working its way into education and like what those possibilities are for like helping people learn and retain information. I mean, there's just South by Southwest just had its education conference, and there's a lot of talk there about, all these new devices and new possibilities that are sort of like I heard this one guy talking about it on NPR, and he was saying how, you know, it's sort of like whenever the car was first invented, like the horse and buggy was still like a better option for transportation, but everybody knew that the car was the future, and that's sort of where we're at with like apps and these other sort of interfaces.
Yeah, although
in education.
I have to say, I personally think that
Are you a
Luddite?
You're about to give a declinist.
Yeah, I'm a Luddite.
Luddite argument.
Yeah,
Go.
I think that there's something special about the way that you have to craft what you do on a page of paper and work with a stylus that's, you know, not really always working the way you want it to. I mean, you know this from when you sketch, right? Like part of what you're doing when you're sketching is sort of like learning the language of that particular stylus, that this particular way that thing's working. And I think if we continue to like do everything on the same platform, everything is through our phone, everything is through this single medium, that's in the long run detrimental.
Well, scientific studies would actually support that, at least right now, that there is something to me putting pencil to actual paper, that I will retain this information and process it more effectively than when I'm typing, than when I'm using a stylus.
But if you're using a stylus on a screen, what's the difference
There's a
between using
huge
a pen
difference.
on a paper?
There's a huge difference. Have you ever tried to draw a cube? The most simple thing, right? Like you try to draw the most simple thing on paper and then try to draw it on a stupid painting app on your tab. Yeah. You tell me there's no difference between the two.
Well, let me Google it and see if you're right about that.
What's so weird though is that like I sort of agree with you, because I was thinking like, oh, I want some way to take naps. I do want that, but to take notes digitally, so I don't have to carry around all these notebooks. And that there are studies that would say, that suggest, we don't know conclusively, but that would suggest that even taking those notes with a stylus on a pad, you don't retain it in the same way.
Google says you're wrong.
There's nothing on this page.
Google just always says you're wrong.
It's just porn.
Caitlin's wrong. But this was just the fluff piece, and we've talked too long.
We've talked too long.
Unless you have one more like media, you know. Media something.
No, let's move on.
Okay.
Typical media.
The next article is from Entertainment Designer, which is a blog about entertainment design.
I liked this one.
Good.
This one is called Shining a Light on Dark Rides. It's on entertainmentdesigner.com. It's by Sasha.
Just Sasha.
Just Sasha.
She doesn't need more.
No more, no less. And it's about dark rides. It's about like thrill rides at amusement parks, and like indoor thrill rides, like often based off of movies or something. Like think like The Amazing Spider-Man, or like that Indiana Jones ride, or
It's a Small World was another one.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Space Mountain is actually a dark ride when you think about it. So what I didn't know, I'd never heard of this term before, but a dark ride is a ride that is entirely indoors in a windowless building, essentially, which is why they call it a dark ride, right? It's not like a roller coaster that's out in the open air.
Oh, because it's dark.
Did you get it?
Yeah, good.
Kevin finally got it.
It kind of describes, this article is really great. It describes sort of the progression from the early days of Cinderella, or Snow White rather, and her adventures, these kind of, what I remember from the county fair growing up, though, like, you get in a little buggy and you go around, four corners of a room, essentially.
Like a tunnel of love, or like a haunted house or something.
Right, and then you pop out the other side, and all these things happen. And now, to the level to which Disney, and especially they mentioned Universal Studios, have taken these rides with cars.
3D projection.
What's the one you shoot with the lasers? The Men in Black?
Yeah.
There's also trackless rides, so rides that aren't even on a track, like people like passengers are just in like these little cars that sort of move and spin on their own, and like it's kind of like one of those little
bumper cars,
or like one of those little like robot vacuum cleaners that just kind of bounce around.
A
Roomba.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, so I thought this article was really great. It talked about like the history of these rides, and then they actually talked with a director of design at the Goddard Group, Taylor Jeffs, who's designed many of these dark rides, and they asked him, how you conceive of one of these rides. It's really like an enormous undertaking. It's kind of like a live action film,
totally.
4D film. And so they ask him like, or rather Taylor Jeffs, this designer, says that like the 4 questions you think about are like, who is this ride for? What's the story? What's the best way to tell the story? What are the big moments that people will leave talking about? So he kind of walks you through how you think about constructing this experience for people, which I thought was really interesting.
Same questions we ask about a show.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. It was cool. They have a ground plan on this article, a shot of one of their ground plans that kind of shows the whole building, right, and the sort of whole environment with the pathway that runs through it. Mm-hmm. And they have these gates kind of drawn out on them, and each one of those gates is sort of like a moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is where we're going to have, you know, the big takeaway moments. Actually, what occurred to me when I was looking at that was like, well, maybe the next step then, and it seems like this is the way they're moving, trying to create more interactivity so that not everybody has the same experience, right?
Yeah.
So like those gates now aren't just like a place where something happens, but the whole ride is a continuum of you deciding what happens in a lot of ways. Like the Men in Black one, like you shoot that alien and a different thing happens.
Right, like where it's more like a sort of a live action video game,
right?
Where like your actions in this physical environment sort of change the way that the environment responds.
Or like we talk about this it's almost a 4-letter word at this point because we talk about it so much, but like Sleep No More, where you choose your own. You choose your own adventure basically as you go through the space.
Or you have no adventure like I did.
Or you don't go. You like get a margarita down the street. That's what I did too, to be honest.
No, I went. I just missed
bored.
everything.
Oh.
No, like it was weird.
You didn't get it.
No, we can talk about that later.
That's the bonus segment.
Bonus segment
That's for our
about
next.
Andrew's experience at Sleep No More.
I'll be gone.
Sorry, Mary Cutchins.
I did think that it was sad that, you know, in this article they talk about how they got rid of the Jaws ride so that they could build the Harry Potter world.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would
rather do the Jaws ride.
I was going to say that one thing that rubbed me the wrong way in this particular article was the implication that new is better, just across the board.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they did that for the Snow White example was one of the very first ones where it was just walls with UV paint, and they show this woman in the 50s like coming out with her son in a cart, and I was like, that looks fun. Like, I would rather do that than the Men in Black ride with like laser beams. I was like, there's something cool to just keeping it simple and keeping it maybe a little bit, because they were also talking about this is the Small World ride. They're like, well, it's really bad. If you look at it, it's really clunky the way that they haven't thought about your experience because of, like, they didn't keep things on the outsides of curves.
Right.
Sometimes there would be an attraction on the inside of a curve so you couldn't see it better. And I'm like, well, maybe that's kind of part of it, though.
Yeah,
that, like, the awkwardness is some of the charm and fun. For me, I like things where it's like they haven't figured me out yet. You know,
Have either of you ever been on one of these rides?
Yeah.
I've been on some, not those particular ones.
I went on Pirates of the
that
Caribbean
too.
with my dad when I was like 1982.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was great.
Fun.
I thought it was great.
Pirates of the Caribbean, is that possible? I thought that was like...
I guess...
No. It was an attraction before it was a movie.
Oh, you're right. No, you're totally...
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
he's
Way
on top of it.
before.
I'm sorry, you're so right.
Trust me, I was there.
I guess I don't know if I have been on one of those because I went on the Jurassic Park ride at Universal Studios, but part of that is outside, and then you go inside.
It might
I think
count.
it counts.
It's kind of cool.
Part of it's a dark ride. So our last dark ride for the spring break segment, the design segment. If you haven't gotten it this time, it's
final ride.
the design segment. The Alley Theater in Houston resurrects the 1977 production of Dracula that was produced on Broadway back then.
With sets.
By Edward Gorey,
Which is so great.
I guess I had read about that at some point, that he made a couple of forays into theater. He certainly did the intro for Masterpiece Theater. I don't know if you guys remember that way back when on PBS.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's perfect fit.
One of the Masterpiece Theater shows, I can't remember which one, but it was, you know, an Agatha Christie type murder mystery thing, and all the intro was Edward Gorey animations. But the set looks beautiful, digitally reproduced essentially from the original elevations.
The set is really gorgeous.
It's great. I mean,
and
picture Edward Gorey,
the lighting design, and it's just beautiful.
Sorry, we should say this is from American Theater, from our friends at Theater Communication Group, written by Diep Tran. It talks to some of the people who were involved in the original production in 1977, and some of the people who are involved in the current staging at Alley Theater. If you're in Houston, go see it for sure. I would. Oh my God, I would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Alley Theater is a really great rep theater from the sort of, the blossoming era of rep theaters. I've worked there a couple of times.
And you do kind of have to hand it to, I think it was Williamstown that did it first in the 70s that commissioned him to do this piece. Well, not commissioned him, hired him to design the set for this. He's like a perfect fit, I think, for this play. And it was interesting that there's even a sentence that said, like, you walked in and you didn't think this was Dracula, and you walked in and thought that was the only way Dracula could be produced. Because I looked at it and thought, that's Dracula. That's great. So I think that was maybe simplifying people's experience of it. Because I thought that seems like a match made in heaven.
Can you guys talk about Edward Gorey?
Just like who he is?
Yeah, who is he?
He's an illustrator. He has a lot of books that are, I would say that they're kind of like fun Gothic books that have a lot
They're mostly children's books.
They're children's books, but with a dark side. He has this
macabre even.
Yeah, I would say there's his whole alphabet series is a bunch of like ways that kids die. Like A is for Alice, who like ate arsenic or something.
Yeah, my friend actually has a tattoo of one of those on his leg.
Yeah. So he's just an illustrator. He's fun, but he's also dark.
Yeah.
But it doesn't read as like sad exactly. It's almost like Addams Family or something, where it's like
One thing this article didn't go into, which I was curious, is did they have to pay the estate to do this? Like,
I don't know.
Did they essentially get to stage this production with no, design cost?
They did have an associate designer who I know that they paid.
Well, and he did the Photoshop, right? Or he or she, I can't remember.
I think there were two, because they interview the associate designer, and then he talks about like an assistant or something who did a ton of photoshopping.
Photoshop work, yeah.
So they definitely paid those people. I would assume that they had to pay for the design.
The rights, yeah.
You would think, unless they donated it, which is also, I suppose, possible.
So anyway, new production of Dracula at the Alley Theater using some great old scenery from Edward Gorey.
So fun.
Not much else to say about that. If you get to Houston, go check it out. We're not in Houston. We're in beautiful Pittsburgh for the spring break edition.
And I'm so tan, as you can tell.
2015.
And we're inside because
where else would you be in Pittsburgh?
It's just gotten
It's 37
too much
degrees
sun, I think, that I need to be inside.
But thanks again for joining us. I know you probably had margaritas to drink and umbrellas to put in the sand wherever you are. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week with a totally normal version of this podcast.
Very dour.
Yeah, dour even. Thanks again, and again, if you want to check out any of the articles we've talked about, you can read them at cmuptm.blogspot.com. I'm Andrew.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.